Karoline came to perform. Jasmine came prepared. One sentence later, the internet had made up its mind, and it wasn't even close. This wasn't just another TV appearance. Everyone on Jasmine Crockett's team knew that. The night before, they'd gone over the briefing 3 times, working late in their DC office with takeout boxes stacked around the table. The producers of Morning Roundtable had pitched it as a timely segment on election integrity. Jasmine knew what. That meant code for confrontation. Sure enough, they confirmed that her counterpart would be Karoline Leavitt, a fast-talking, camera-polished spokesperson for Trump's 2024 campaign. No surprise, but no room for error either. At the long conference table, Jasmine sat with her, sleeves rolled up, scrolling through Karoline's past media hits. Clip after clip followed the same script: polished delivery, emotional pivots, and dodged follow-ups. Her staffer, Candace, muttered, "She's not debating. She's performing." Jasmine didn't blink. Then we make truth louder than performance. At 41, Crockett wasn't new to confrontation, but live TV was its own battlefield. There were no do-overs. A single moment clipped, stripped of context, shared online could erase months of groundwork. That pressure didn't shake her. It focused her. This wasn't about personal image. It was about voters in places like Ypsilanti, Michigan, and Rockford, Alabama, where showing up to vote could mean presenting 3 forms of ID. It was about her aunt, who marched in the Praitian, home marched in the ATS, and a young woman Jasmine met at a Dallas rally, who waited for hours in line just to cast a ballot. It was about truth, how it was twisted, drained, and resold as alternative facts. She already knew what Karoline would say, that voter ID laws were about election security, that Democrats wanted chaos, that suppression was just political theater. But Jasmine knew what the numbers showed: who was purged, who was displaced, which polling sites mysteriously closed before Election Day. Still, she wouldn't lecture. Stay calm, stay surgical. Her chief of staff, Lenny, reminded her, "You don't win these moments by shouting. You win by staying locked in when they try to knock you off balance." He handed her Georgia's 2022 voter data. She scanned it, nodded, and slid it aside. What she needed now wasn't more paper. It was clarity at 6 a.m. the next day. Jasmine walked into the Arlington studio. No entourage, no glam squad. Just her, a black coffee, and the same steady energy she brought to the House floor. Makeup tech dusted her cheeks as producers moved like clockwork. Karoline was already in the adjacent green room. Jasmine could hear the exaggerated laughter through the wall. She exhaled through her nose. Steady. A junior producer poked in. "You're up in 2. We're live after the weather." He hesitated. "You good?" Jasmine met his eyes. "I'm great." She took her seat on set with a stillness that makes people underestimate you. Posture open, eyes scanning the studio cameras, lights, teleprompter. Across from her, Karoline entered with a bright, rehearsed smile. She waved like it was brunch, legs crossed. Relaxed, Jasmine wasn't here for brunch. She was here to work. The hosts rolled their intro. Music played, cameras turned red. Jasmine blocked everything else out. This wasn't theater. It was testimony. Neither she nor Karoline knew yet, but what was about to happen wouldn't stay in that studio. After the forecast ended, the camera panned out to the full panel. Jasmine Crockett on the left, Karoline Leavitt on the right. The hosts seated in the middle, neutral on paper, if not always in tone. The set was styled to look casual, like a morning chat among friends, but the tension was impossible to ignore. The air was too cold. The silence, too sharp. Host Aaron Blevins broke it. Joining us this morning to discuss voting access, election security, and campaign rhetoric, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Karoline Leavitt, National Press Secretary. For the Trump campaign, thanks for being here. Karoline jumped in first, all smiles, always a pleasure. Speaking straight into the lens like a campaign ad. Jasmine paused a beat, glad to be part of the conversation. The hosts exchanged a glance, subtle but practiced. Then Aaron continued, "Let's get right to it. Congresswoman Crockett, in recent weeks, you've raised concerns about new legislative efforts around voter ID laws in states like Arizona and Wisconsin." And just like that, it began. "What's your central objection?" Jasmine leaned in slightly, hands folded, voice steady. "The objection is simple. These laws aren't built to protect votes. They're built to prevent certain people from voting." She barely finished. The sentence before Karoline cut in. "Oh, come on, Congresswoman. That's a tired narrative. We ask for ID to board a plane, to buy alcohol, host no." 2. Liz Tran raised a hand. Let's allow the Congresswoman to finish, but Jasmine had already turned toward Karoline, unshaken. It's not about ID in theory. It's about how those laws are applied in reality. Who gets flagged? Who gets removed? Who gets turned away at the polls? That's not a theory, Karoline. That's a pattern. Karoline gave a smile, the kind reserved for correcting a child, and said, "That's your opinion." Jasmine didn't miss a beat. "No, it's a finding, backed by court rulings. Federal monitors, nonpartisan audits. But if calling it an opinion helps you sleep, a quiet ooh slipped from someone behind the camera." Jasmine didn't even blink. Aaron, the main host, cleared his throat, trying to steer things back. "Karoline," he began, "your campaign says Democrats are pushing the myth of voter suppression to create division. Do you believe suppression is a myth?" Karoline's eyes lit up. This was her lane soundbite territory. "What I believe," she said, turning smoothly to camera, "is that our elections are strongest when every legal vote counts. What Democrats want, especially the radical wing Congresswoman Crockett represents, is chaos. They want anyone from anywhere walking in to vote without proving who they are." Jasmine saw the bait coming 3 counties away. She didn't bite. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, lips parting with a faint trace of amusement. "Chaos," she said. "You mean the kind of chaos that happened in Texas last cycle, when people with valid IDs were told their registrations had vanished? Or maybe the chaos where polling stations in black neighborhoods were shut down overnight, while suburban ones got extra machines?" Karoline opened her mouth, but Jasmine wasn't done. "I've never asked for no rules. I've asked for fair ones. There's a difference. One you either don't understand or don't care to admit." The studio quieted. "This wasn't on the script," Jasmine continued, voice cool, unwavering. "And if we're talking chaos, let's talk about after 2020, when your candidate refused to concede, lied to the public, and incited an insurrection. If we're tossing around words like radical, let's at least be accurate." Karoline's mouth tightened. She shifted in her seat. The hosts jumped in fast. Liz turned back to Jasmine. "Congresswoman, you mentioned earlier that some states are actively making it harder to vote." Before Jasmine could answer, Karoline leaned forward, voice sharper now, harder. "No, we're asking for responsibility. You call everything suppression just because it doesn't favor your party. You play the victim every election cycle." That's when the tone changed. Jasmine shifted, not toward the hosts, not toward Karoline, but to the camera. Her voice didn't rise. It deepened. "Let me be clear," she said. "This isn't about parties. It's about power. Who has it and who's allowed to keep it? When you make it harder for working people, for students, for the elderly, for low-income communities to vote, that's not security. That's strategy." The control room whispered through earpieces. Someone cued the next segment early, but Jasmine wasn't done. Not yet. If Karoline wanted to go low, Jasmine was going precise. The tension snapped from awkward to electric. The hosts tried to pivot, something about growing divides and public trust in elections, but the conversation had already slipped past their outline. Karoline waited. Then struck when Jasmine cited the Brennan Center's report on voter roll purges. As of March, Jasmine said, locking eyes with the camera, 3 battleground states had removed over 200,000 registered voters, mostly from Black and Latino zip codes. No warnings, just gone. Karoline leaned back, arms crossed, voice now with a sharpened edge. Well, that's what happens when people don't update their registrations. Elections have rules. If you don't follow them, that's not suppression. That's called consequences. That was the moment. Jasmine turned to her, calm but firmer. Are you seriously suggesting that tens of thousands of voters all just forgot to update their info at the exact same time? Karoline gave a smug little shrug. Sounds like it. And then came the line she shouldn't have said. Or maybe the left just likes to cry wolf when they lose. It's all part of the show, the liberal theatrics. The words hit like a dropped mic. Even the hosts froze. Liz blinked. Aaron adjusted his tie. Silence stretched, the kind that isn't scripted, can't be rehearsed, and only ever happens live. Jasmine leaned back in her chair, slowly, and the whole room waited too. See what she'd say next. She gave herself space to breathe. Her fingers tapped together once, twice before she looked up again. You know, it's Karoline, she said quietly. I've been called a lot of things, but theatrics, that's a new one. Her tone was measured. But underneath, it wasn't sarcasm, and it wasn't anger. It was clarity. The kind that rattles anyone who's used to getting by on noise. You call it theatrics. She continued, because you've never had to look someone in the eye and explain why their name vanished from the voter rolls. You've never seen someone hold back tears because their 84-year-old grandmother was told she didn't exist in the system anymore. Karoline rolled her eyes. Jasmine didn't flinch, because she wasn't speaking to Karoline anymore. She was speaking to the camera, to the viewers watching from living rooms, classrooms, break rooms, to the people who knew exactly what she meant, and worse, you don't know what it feels like. She said, to watch your community treated like a problem. To be managed, silenced, told that their voices are too loud, too black, too inconvenient. That's when Karoline cut in again, voice cracking at the edges. Oh, please, Congresswoman. Stop pretending you're some kind of victim. This isn't a drama special. This is policy. Numbers, not your little story time hour. Jasmine turned and looked at her, really looked. And for a split second, the studio went still. The camera zoomed in tight on her face as she reached under the desk for a folder. No drama. No pause, just precision. She opened it flat and laid 3 printed documents on the desk, like cards at a table. One by one, the first a transcript from Karoline's recent YouTube interview. The second, a tweet. The third, a leaked email. From a state-level GOP staffer, you want numbers. Jasmine said calmly, here you go. She tapped the tweet. In Georgia, your campaign claimed no voter roll purges. False. Public records show over 87,000 removed from one county. Many of them hadn't moved, hadn't changed a thing. She tapped the transcript. You said Democrats were faking long lines in minority precincts. False again. Local affiliates captured footage of those lines, some lasting past 8 p.m. Then she held the email up for the camera. This one's from a Republican strategist in Wisconsin, suggesting polling places be closed in Democrat-heavy areas too. Thin turnout without touching the base. She let the words hang. That's not voter education. That's voter suppression with a smile. Karoline didn't respond. Her jaw stiffened. The hosts exchanged glances. The mood had shifted again. And this time, it wasn't going back. Jasmine leaned in, calm. As ever, you can call it drama, she said. I call it daylight. But she wasn't done. There was something else, coming slower, quieter, more dangerous than anything loud. The producer stayed silent in the host's earpieces. No countdown. No commercial break. No one wanted to interrupt. Jasmine sat still, but it wasn't passivity. It was control. Her voice stayed cool, her gaze locked, her facts sharp. She wasn't grandstanding. She was dissecting, and Karoline didn't have the tools to keep up. I want to be very clear, Jasmine said. When someone shows up to vote and is told their name doesn't exist despite not moving, not changing districts, not requesting removal, she paused. Not for drama, for emphasis. That's not user error. That's not a clerical mix-up. That's a system deciding who counts. Karoline let out a scoff, waving her hand. Oh, come on. People can't handle basic paperwork? That's not the system's fault. It's the 21st century. You don't manage your registration. That's on you. Still, Jasmine didn't blink. Didn't rise to the bait. She leaned forward, her voice low, more lived in than political. My grandfather, Seth said, couldn't read until he was 21. Born in Tyler, Texas, served in Korea, paid taxes, raised 6 kids. But until 1965, he had to pass a so-called literacy test to vote in the country he defended. She let the silence do what silence does. And today, she continued, we're watching the same game. New rules, same goal, same impact. She paused again, just in different packaging. Karoline shifted in her seat and across the studio and in homes all across America, viewers leaned in, listening not for a comeback, but for the truth that had already landed. You could see it now, her confidence was thinning. Karoline was used to opponents who rattled, who got loud, emotional, personal. But Jasmine wasn't rattled. She wasn't angry. She was clear. What's frustrating, Jasmine said, now turning. To face the hosts directly is how we keep treating these conversations like they're two sides of the same coin, like they both carry equal weight. She let that sit a second. One side says, we want fair elections. The other calls fairness a threat, and we act like it's just a difference of opinion. Liz, the co-host, jumped in quickly. But Congresswoman, to be fair, Jasmine repeated gently, cutting in, the data doesn't lie. We have numbers. We have video. We have sworn affidavits. This isn't theoretical. It's not historical. It's now. She looked out at the camera, and it's not going away. In the control room, someone finally pushed a cue. 90 seconds to commercial break flashed across the teleprompter. But no one moved. Everyone stayed locked in. Karoline crossed her arms again, this time tighter. I think what's really happening here, she said, voice clipped, is a lot of narrative building. Congresswoman, you're more interested in painting a picture of victimhood than offering real solutions. You say these laws are racist. Fine. Where's your policy alternative? Jasmine inhaled. The John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. The Freedom to Vote Act. Both blocked. Why? Because the same people yelling about fraud had zero interest in transparency. Karoline scoffed. Those are just Trojan horses. A power grabs dressed up like rights. Then Jasmine did something Karoline didn't expect. She smiled just for a second. You keep calling it a power grab, she said. But what you're really afraid of is balance. 'Cause when more people vote, the game gets fair. And you're not used to playing fair. Even the hosts were quiet now. Aaron leaned back in his chair, unsure if anything needed saying at all. Jasmine reached for her coffee, didn't drink it. She sat back, finally giving the silence room to stretch. Then, almost as an afterthought, she turned toward the camera again. If you have to build walls around the ballot box just to win. She paused, Maybe the problem isn't the voters. Karoline opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She blinked, looked at the hosts, looked at the control room, and for the first time during the segment, she had nothing. But Jasmine wasn't done, because what happened next didn't just tilt the conversation. It froze the room. It was supposed to be the hosts steering the segment, keeping things balanced, keeping the mood light. But no one was steering anymore. Jasmine had taken the reins, not by force, not by volume, but by clarity. And Karoline knew it. You could see it in the way she kept adjusting her posture, the way her fingers kept fidgeting for the next line. But the air had shifted on. The script was useless now. Liz glanced at the prompter, tried to pivot. "Let's talk solutions," she said. "Congresswoman, what's one thing Congress could realistically do right now to restore trust in our elections?" Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She looked down, thumbed the edge of the folder she'd brought, then looked straight into camera too. Her voice lowered not in volume, but in weight. "You want to restore trust?" she asked. "Start by telling the truth. Stop pretending both sides are offering the same thing." She leaned in slightly, like she was speaking across a coffee table, not a political desk. One side wants every eligible American to vote, regardless of party. The other side keeps changing the locks, moving the goalposts. That's not debate. That's sabotage. Karoline jumped in sharp now. "That's a gross mischaracterization, Congresswoman. Republicans aren't afraid of voters. We want secure elections, period." And that's when it happened. Jasmine turned her head slowly, looked directly at Karoline. No smirk, no raised voice, just calm, unwavering truth. "The truth doesn't need spin, Karoline," she said. "It just needs daylight." Time stopped. You could hear someone shift a paper on the desk. That's how still the studio had gotten. No cutaways, no quick transitions. Just a wide shot, two women side by side. One steady, one suddenly unsure. Karoline opened her mouth, hesitated, looked to the hosts, looked off camera. Her face stayed composed, but her hands kept moving, grasping for something to say. Then Jasmine turned back to the hosts. Her tone didn't change. "You asked for a solution," she said. "There it is. Shine daylight on it. No spin, no slogans, just facts." Aaron nodded, slow. His usual responses, "Well said," or "That's one perspective," felt hollow now. He stayed quiet, because this wasn't business as usual. Anymore, it felt like something viewers would carry with them long after the credits rolled. Karoline sat up straighter. "Look," she said, "I don't think this needs to be personal. I think we can all agree the election process needs modernization." But Jasmine cut in softly. "This isn't personal to me," she said. "It's personal to the voter who worked an overnight shift and had their polling place shut down without warning. It's personal to the student who got a provisional ballot and never heard back." Jasmine finished, her voice steady. "It's personal to every American who followed the rules, did everything right, and still got shut out." The hosts glanced nervously at the teleprompter. The break signal was flashing, but Liz raised a hand toward the crew. "Not yet." Across the table, Karu was beginning to crack. The polish, the practiced ease it, was slipping. She cleared her throat, adjusted her mic, and tried to steady herself. "Well, I mean, we can't just ignore election interference," she offered. "There have been serious threats from abroad. And let's be honest, Democrats have pushed their own misinformation too." Jasmine turned to her again, but this time the chill in her voice was unmistakable. "Say what you want about foreign interference," she said, "but you and I both know the real threat hasn't come from outside. It's right here. Domestic. It's treating voter trust like an inconvenience instead of a foundation." Finally, the crew called for break. The studio lights dipped slightly as the bumper music faded in. Liz thanked both guests quickly, promising to revisit the topic in future broadcasts, but the moment had already slipped their grasp. It wasn't ending. Not here. It was just beginning online. In the control room, the tech crew exchanged glances. No one said it aloud, but they were all thinking the same thing. That line. That was it. Back on the studio floor, Karoline was already reaching for her phone. She knew the Game 1 clip, one quote, and the internet forgot everything else. She opened X, typing, "Liberals sure love their sound bites. Too bad reality isn't scripted." But before she could hit post, she saw it. A screen recording, just 30 seconds long, was already up. Jasmine, staring into the lens. "The truth doesn't need spin, Karoline. It just needs daylight. No background music. No flashy edits. Just the raw studio feed." It had only been online. For 3 minutes, 12,000 views and climbing. The caption read, "She ate her alive." Crockett didn't blink. Another user had added, "That look Karoline gave after." Yeah, she felt that. Karoline's jaw tightened. She glanced at Jasmine, who sat calmly, hands folded. She wasn't checking her phone, wasn't fidgeting. Just waiting composed. Like none of this surprised her. A studio assistant stepped up. "We're off in 2. Just hold for wrap." Karoline muttered under her breath, "That was cute." Jasmine turned her head slightly. "Sorry," Karoline forced a smile. "Your little speech. You came rehearsed." Jasmine didn't smile back. "No script," she said evenly. "Just memory." And that got under Karoline's skin more than any shouted insult ever could. She was used to debate opponents cracking, getting emotional, matching her aggression. But Jasmine, she didn't flinch. She didn't chase the heat. She held the floor. The hosts returned to the desk. Mics were unclipped. The artificial air of normalcy returned, but the energy hadn't reset. It wasn't over. Not really. Jasmine headed down the back hallway. Her staffer, Candace, met her mid-step, holding up a phone. "You want the numbers?" Jasmine shook her head. "Not really, but go ahead." Candace held up the screen, trending number 3 nationwide. 4 separate accounts, each with over 1 million followers, had posted the clip. Jasmine nodded, but didn't slow down. Meanwhile, Karoline stood alone by the studio. Entrance, refreshing her feed. A text buzzed in from her media team. "We need a response. Something sharp. Can you film a quick story?" But she didn't have one. Not yet. Because the clip spreading across the internet wasn't angry. It wasn't aggressive. It was precise, controlled, calm, and devastating. Karoline hadn't been shouted down. She'd been out-clarified. She opened her camera app, tried typing, tried a voice memo, deleted both by the time she slipped into her private Uber. Jasmine's line had reached a late-night talk show monologues, 3 morning show rundowns, and a growing thread of voters sharing their own stories of being purged or turned away. 1. Reply read, she said, what we've all been feeling. They're not afraid of fraud. They're afraid of us. Karoline scrolled, searching for a counter, but nothing landed. She couldn't argue with the truth that was already resonating in people's bones. And meanwhile, Jasmine. She rode quietly back to her office. No need to celebrate. No need to spin. The clip would do the talking for her. She didn't ask to see the clip. Didn't check her mentions. When they got back, Candace offered her a charger. You're probably going to get a lot of calls. Jasmine gave a small shrug. Let 'em come. She slipped off her blazer and sat at her desk, not smiling, not triumphant, just still. Oh. This wasn't a win. It wasn't about that. Oh. This was what happens when you say what needs to be said, and you say it plainly. But outside that quiet office, the country was already reacting. Her words were moving faster than she ever could, picking up speed, taking shape. When the show came back from commercial, the hosts were clearly trying to pivot. The next segment was meant to be light, a fluff piece about summer travel. Deals no one cared. Aaron did his best. Coming up next, we'll check in with our travel correspondent for some surprising discounts on airfare this August. But his voice was flat. The tone had shifted. Everyone could feel it. Backstage, Jasmine was already gone. She'd thanked the crew, shaken a few hands, and left. No press photos, no chatter. It wasn't avoidance, it was precision. She knew the clip was louder than any follow-up could ever be. Karoline stayed. She lingered by the makeup mirror, scrolling like her phone might offer answers. Each refresh brought more content, comments, edits, stitches, reaction videos. There were TikToks, memes, a remix of Jasmine's line, "The truth doesn't need spin, just needs daylight," laid over a beat drop, over violins, over protest footage from past elections. It was everywhere in the green room. Two junior staffers, not even political junkies, were huddled over one of their phones, re-watching the clip. One looked up just as Karoline walked by. "Oh, didn't see you there," she said, awkwardly locking her screen. Karoline didn't answer. She just walked out. Meanwhile, in a news studio 3 states away, the clip was already queued up for panel analysis. Cable hosts from competing networks, people who rarely agreed on anything, were texting their producers the same thing. "Do we have that Crockett clip yet?" In Phoenix, a segment producer uploaded it to their network's feed with the caption, "This might be the sharpest takedown of the cycle." By noon, Jasmine's comms team had to pause their meeting to track the surge. Reporters were calling. Podcasts were requesting interviews. A satire channel on YouTube even dropped its usual jokes to do a straight segment on the Crockett moment. But in Jasmine's office, it wasn't chaos. It was calm. Focused. Candace sat across from her. "We're getting interview requests. A lot. CNN, MSNBC, Vox, even BBC America. You want to respond?" Jasmine shook her head. "Not yet. Not even a tweet." She paused, thoughtful. "No, let the clip breathe." That was her instinct, not to chase the wave, but to hold still and let it pass through people. Let it land where it landed. Let it speak for itself. And it did. Commentary poured in from everywhere. A retired judge in Missouri tweeted, "Crockett didn't argue." She didn't yell. She laid it down and let it sit. That's how it's done. A high school civics teacher in Kansas posted, "Played Jasmine Crockett's response in class today. My seniors actually leaned in." That never happens. Even some Republicans, off the record, admitted it. Karoline walked into it. She wasn't ready by late afternoon. The most viral meme of the day showed Jasmine in that signature pose, calm, composed, saying nothing, with the caption, "No volume needed." You know exactly what she just said. Karoline's team tried to salvage it. An hour after broadcast, she went live on Instagram from the front seat of her car, framing tight, voice firm. "Let's be real," she began. "What you saw today was an orchestrated hit job. The left loves a good viral moment, but viral doesn't mean valid. Don't be fooled." The video got some traction. But the comments weren't what she hoped for. "Nah, she cooked you." That wasn't orchestrated. That was earned. And beneath it all, one quiet reply that had already racked up thousands of likes. "You brought spin. She brought daylight. You got fact-checked in real time. Just take the L and move on." Karoline ended the live video early, frustration etched all over her face. At that same moment, Jasmine stood at her office window, looking down at the street below. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't replaying anything in her mind. She just stood, silent, thinking about the bigger picture. Because truth doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it just waits. And when the moment's right, it lands exactly where it needs to. But the ripple hadn't finished spreading, because the country wasn't just reacting, it was responding by early afternoon. The clip had gone places Jasmine never expected. Not just media platforms or political Twitter, but kitchens, classrooms, union halls, and coffee counters across the map. In a mid-sized town outside Fort Wayne, Indiana, Miss Helene Jeffries, a veteran high school social studies teacher, paused her lesson on state constitutions. She dimmed the lights, opened YouTube, and played the clip for her juniors. They watched in silence, rare for that room. When it ended, a lanky 16-year-old named Malik raised his hand. So, she wasn't even mad. That made it hit harder. Miss Jeffries nodded. Exactly. You don't have to yell to make it land. She didn't argue. She clarified. In a nail salon in Tucson, a few women sat quietly while the clip played on someone's phone. An older client, getting her nails shaped, muttered, "She just said it plain. They don't usually do that." In a black-owned barbershop in Columbus, Ohio, the clip played 3 times straight on the wall-mounted TV. One young barber turned to the others. Man, they always underestimate her. But she knows how to hold her ground. His client nodded. She didn't even flinch, just laid out the truth like lunch. At a diner off Highway 36 in Salina, Kansas, a retired city clerk watched the clip on her iPad. She sipped black coffee, shook her head, and whispered, "They keep putting that woman on panels thinking she slip." But she doesn't raise her voice. She raises the bar. Across the country, people weren't just reacting to what Jasmine said. They were reflecting on why it mattered. This wasn't just about voting laws or on-air sparring. It was about someone who refused to be rattled, who refused to fit the angry stereotype, who knew exactly what she was talking about and didn't let the moment pass her by in Milwaukee. A young campaign organizer named Tiana was standing on a street corner with a clipboard when her phone buzzed. A friend had texted her a screen grab from the broadcast, Jasmine's quote bolded underneath. Tiana smiled. "That's my Congresswoman." She wasn't in Jasmine's district. Didn't even live in Texas. But it didn't matter. Representation. Travels meanwhile, in a quiet house in Syracuse, New York. 83-year-old Mrs. Adeline Weaver sat in her recliner, eyes glassy. Her granddaughter had shown her the clip that morning. "I remember when they made us count jelly beans in a jar just to register," she said softly. And now that woman, she just told the truth. Plain. And they couldn't handle it. Her granddaughter, home from college for summer break, asked, "You think anything will change?" Mrs. Weaver didn't take her eyes off the screen. It already is. Online, hashtags kept climbing. Hashtag Crockett did that, hashtag let the daylight in, hashtag no spin, just truth political. Analysts scrambled to get ahead of it. Some framed it as a moment of clarity in an election cycle full of noise. Others called it proof that poise beats performance. Even moderate columnists who usually criticized Democrats gave Jasmine her due. When you come prepared and stay calm, the truth does the heavy lifting. Fox News tried to downplay the moment. One host called it another made-for-Twitter exchange that won't matter in a week. But the network's own comment section told a different story. Dozens of responses praising Jasmine's composure. Sharp, dangerous in the best way. Exactly what we need more of. In Biloxi, Mississippi, a retired firefighter sent the clip to his family group chat. His caption: "This woman didn't just clap back. She educated that girl." On live TV, in Sacramento, a community college professor added the clip to his fall syllabus. In Miami, a pastor quoted it in his Sunday sermon. In Portland, Gen Z volunteers used the soundbite in a TikTok for voter registration. And Jasmine, she still hadn't tweeted, hadn't taken a single interview. And yet, her words were everywhere. Back in her office, far from the buzz, she sat, in stillness. The sun stretched long shadows across the floor as the city outside moved on, Couriers and cabs weaving through Capitol Hill traffic. But inside, she wasn't watching the noise. She was thinking about what came next. Inside her office, everything was still. She wasn't pacing. She wasn't checking social media or refreshing mentions. She wasn't calling her staff for damage control or crafting a follow-up statement. She just sat at her desk, quietly reading. A letter from a veteran in Oklahoma, one of many messages that came in that week. Candace stepped in softly, laptop in hand. "I know you said no press yet," she said, "but CNN just emailed your personal account." From the anchor herself, Jasmine looked up, half smiling. They must really be scrambling. "They are," Candace replied, with a dry laugh. "Everyone is. NBC just ran a segment. Called it a textbook takedown." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. Textbook or theatrical? Candace smirked. "I think you just reclaimed that word." Jasmine set the letter aside and stretched. "What's the online sentiment?" Candace flipped the laptop around. Jasmine's face was everywhere, stills from the clip. Quotes framed in black and white, slowed video loops layered with music. But what stood out wasn't just the reach. It was the tone. "People aren't just clapping," Candace explained. "They're talking. Really talking. Sharing their own stories. Bringing up voter suppression not just from last year, but from 10 years ago. People who never speak up are speaking up." Jasmine scrolled slowly. Her expression didn't shift much, but her posture did a subtle change. Not pride, exactly. More like quiet responsibility. "Funny," she said. "It's the same message I've been giving since before I got elected. They just heard it this time." "You think that's the setting?" "The delivery?" Candace asked. Jasmine closed the laptop and slid it away. "I think it's timing. Sometimes the country's too distracted to care. Sometimes too numb to feel it, but sometimes they're ready. And when they're ready, it lands a knock." Lenny, her chief of staff, stepped in with 2 folders. "Got a scheduling call in 10. Morning roundtable wants a follow-up. They're claiming Karoline was ambushed, accusing us of coordinating with the producers." Jasmine leaned back. "I didn't even look at the producers. I was too busy listening to her contradict herself." "Lenny?" "Place the folders on her desk. You've got options. Ride the wave or get ahead of it. Make a statement." Jasmine was quiet for a moment. Then, "We don't shape truth," she said. "We protect it. If it's real, it doesn't need spin. It stands." Candace nodded. That should be the next quote. They all chuckled briefly. But under the laughter, the weight remained. Jasmine stood and walked to the window again, arms folded. Staring out across the rooftops, "You know what stuck with me the most?" she asked. "What?" Candace said. The way she said, liberal. Theatrics. Like speaking up for people is some kind of act. Like caring is performative. That kind of thinking, that's why people give up on politics. They think it's just noise. But it's not. Not when it's your vote, your neighborhood, your rights. Lenny joined her by the window. That's the difference. You weren't performing. You were bearing witness. Jasmine gave a faint smile. That wasn't the plan. That was just the truth. Outside the room, the buzz didn't stop. Phones rang. Emails dinged. Press requests kept pouring in, but Jasmine stayed grounded. Thinking not about herself, but about the people watching. The ones who had waited too long to be heard. The ones who heard. Their own voice echoed in hers. Because this moment wasn't about going viral. It was about reminding the country what real leadership can sound like. That evening, long after the building had emptied out, Jasmine sat alone. Lights low, office quiet. The Capitol glowing outside her window, still distant, unmoved. She thought about how quickly it all happened. One exchange, one sentence. But what people didn't see were the years that led to that moment. The endless hearings, community forums with barely anyone in the chairs, the phone calls from elders, scared of being turned away again, the town halls where she had to explain over and over that no fraud wasn't everywhere, but yes, suppression was real. None of that went viral. None of that got quoted. But that's what built her. It sharpened her, tempered her, taught her to speak with clarity, and when the moment came, she didn't flinch. Her phone buzzed again. Screenshots from TikTok, memes on Reddit, Instagram Reels, people quoting her, sharing their own quiet truths. Not flashy, not performative, but deeply, undeniably human. She leaned back, let herself reflect, just for a moment. She wasn't proud. Because she won, that wasn't what it was about. This wasn't a contest. This wasn't about taking down Karoline. What mattered was what it revealed, not about her, about the hunger people feel to hear something true, said plainly. Too often, politicians talk like they're dodging lasers, careful, vague, mechanical. But people don't always want perfect. They want real. She stood again, opened the window a crack. The night air was cool. The city quieter than usual, not silent, just settled. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Irene, a retired teacher from Dallas. They'd met at a church event 2 years back, hadn't spoken since. You said it like we say it. Thank you. Jasmine smiled. No lights. No applause. Just those words. And they mattered. She picked up her phone and hit record. No script, just her. Hey everyone, she said into the camera. I've been hearing from a lot of you tonight. I just want to say this. Today wasn't about clapping back. It wasn't about winning. It was about saying the truth out loud in a place where lies usually do the talking. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to protect what belongs to all of us. And if my words today made you feel seen, heard, or reminded you that your voice matters, then I did my job. Let's keep showing up for each other. Not just online, but in real life. She didn't add hashtags. No filters. Just thank you. Then she hit upload. The comments started rolling in, but Jasmine didn't wait around. She turned off the lights, grabbed her coat, and stepped out into the night. Because the real work, it happens off camera, unrecorded, steady, and real. And that's what this was about all along, not shutting someone down, but standing up for something.